Hello and welcome to the Higher View Podcast, the podcast dedicated to the creative, the outside thinker, and the believer who are seeking community and healthy views on worldly topics. I am here with my better half, wonderful partner, co-host, and wifey, Alexus.
All the things.
Welcome to the show.
Yes, welcome.
It's good to have you.
Good to have you too.
Good to see you on the show again. A permanent co-host.
Yeah, for real. How many episodes are we in? 29 deep?
Will be the 30th episode.
30th episode.
This will be the 30th episode.
Oh my
we've done.
gosh.
So you know what that means.
That means we have 20 more.
20 more until the season ends.
Wow.
Oh.
That's amazing.
Forewarning, if you guys hear whining in the back, we are dog sitting right now, and sometimes he can wimp at the door. But he's not allowed in here because he will definitely knock stuff around. But yeah, he's a cool dog. He's a mini Aussie, just like our dog. Super cool dog to watch and take care of. But just to let you guys know, if you hear whining, there's not somebody trapped in our house. It's just a dog.
Yeah.
But if this is your first time to the show, we just want to welcome you. We want to thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button, hit the follow button, rate us wherever you're listening or watching. We'd greatly appreciate that. Help us out a lot. So thank you in advance.
Yeah, and thank you so much for the feedback.
Yes, we've been getting some good feedback, some good, what's the word? Just traction and people picking it up. So that's been awesome to see. It's good to see the podcast growing. It's good to see growth in anything. So it's encouraging to see. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, for sure. How was your day today?
My day was it was a slow day at work for a Monday, especially. I'm just pretty tired.
Yeah.
I'm pretty tired. You know, like everybody's talking about how the hour difference has made them tired and stuff. I didn't really feel it on the day that it changed because it changed on Saturday? Mm-hmm. I didn't feel it then. Like I literally woke up with energy, but now today I do feel tired. Like,
it's interesting that really does do something.
Yeah.
It really does make a difference. And it's like,
it does.
In my head, I was like, an hour. Like, it's just 1 hour. It's not like we went back 5 hours or something.
Yeah.
But it's like when you travel and they have a different time than we do, it does affect you. It does. Because your body is used to a certain time period of the day and all this stuff. So it knows when something changes, which is really interesting.
Yeah, like going to another side of the world where the time is literally opposite. Your body's definitely going to know that.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Like, why? Why not just...
But it's what I didn't know is the other like states do that too. Like, because the East Coast is always an hour ahead. Other places are like 2 hours behind or an hour behind. I heard something about like them just stopping, like not changing the time anymore. But I don't know. I didn't really do too much like research. I didn't dig into it too much.
Where'd you see that at?
I think I heard it at work.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, I think I just heard somebody talking about it. Yeah. How's your day?
My day's good.
Yeah.
Mondays are we're recording on Mondays, so when you watch a Saturday, we record really the first day of the week. We used to, whenever we first started, we were like 3 episodes ahead, and now we're kind of just like doing 1 episode at a time. If we can fit in another episode, that's great. But I don't know. I've been liking it being fresh because I don't know. I like that, but I know you like being ahead.
Ahead, yeah. But I do know what you mean, like being fresh through the week, because we can record like 3 weeks back, and it's like, I don't remember that.
It's like a total different time in our life. Now. Yeah, literally. That was the only thing that I didn't really like about that. But I understand, like, if we like plan ahead, like if we have something that month, we're like, oh, we're traveling, like we need to make sure we're ahead this month. And I get that. But I think I enjoy this once a week type thing and just seeing how it plays out. It's really, really cool.
It's kind of like that thing we're just talking about. You don't always have to have the reins. Sometimes you can just let go and not have control over the reins. It's kind of one of those things where I'm just like, life happens. I got to kind of just sit back and do what we can.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so my day has been pretty good. Like I said, my Mondays are off, and I've just been stretching and growing. For real though. Like lots of friction and growing that muscle, and when you're growing your muscles, it burns. And so talking about that, like spiritually, mentally, it's been a growing day. And just my whole weekend has been a growing weekend. But it's like now I have to apply this to my life. Like I have to really be taking and applying things to my life and speaking things out loud. And it takes work, but you can definitely feel the fruits of that whenever you're pressing through, and you can feel yourself getting stronger and just more, I don't know, taking higher levels for sure. So I'm very, very appreciative of that. So that was kind of my day today.
What would you say like you're feeling friction at, or growth? Like new levels, where do you feel like that's kind of at?
Definitely in our marriage. For sure. I think our marriage is like bringing out the things that I need to work on, which is really, really awesome.
It's good. It's awesome.
Yeah. I don't want to be like closed off to that. I want to be open. And what was that one thing you talked about? And is it somebody at your work that from a different country, and how in their country, like people want to know what they're doing wrong, and then here talk about it, because that was really cool.
So we had like this young professional meeting at work. Like they just kind of handpicked some young people that worked in the office, and we all like went to a meeting at this hotel. Like they had like a meeting room they rented out, and we had this guest speaker, and he was just kind of like talking about he created this what do you call it, like a, not a map, but kind of like a legend. And you'll take a test, like, how you take like the assessment for work, like, what would you do in this situation, or blah blah blah, and you pick like an answer out of 4 questions. Well, I didn't know, but they were keeping my answers, and it showed off of like a grid. It would show you like what you're good at, what you're not so good at, like what your strengths and weaknesses are, pretty much. But all it was just like a red line, and we wore them like on our name tag. Like we had our name tag, and then it had like our picture of our graph.
That's cool.
So it just like showed like where we are. It was pretty cool. But so it was like yellow, red, green, and blue. 4 different dots, and then there was a red line, and then the dots were like placed wherever you were good and wherever you were weak at. So I think he created the legend, but he's a world speaker, world renowned speaker. I think that's the word. He speaks all around the world. And he teaches people in the business world about these strengths and weaknesses and how we can, improve. But he was just telling us, like in America, it's a lot, we're instilled, like our brains are automatically prepared for what's good. So, he'll start to talk to people about like, okay, well, you're pretty good at this area. You're doing good in this area. This is one of your strengths and stuff like that. And then when he's in America, people are just like, oh yeah, like I'm eating this up. Like, this is good.
Yeah,
like I like to hear that.
This.
Yeah, like, tell me more. And as soon as he gets to like the stuff that they're weak at, people shut off. And it's like, yeah, I don't want to hear that. That's not true. I'm not gonna listen to that one. But he says like in Germany, in India, and other countries, that's where they turn on. Like they get bored when you start telling them like what they're good at, like this is their strengths and this is where they can they do best at. And when they have the weaknesses is when they're like, oh, okay, like tell me more, like please, like I want to know, like where can I improve, so that was really, really interesting.
I love that. It
shows how egotistical America is. It shows, I mean, and I already knew that, like him coming in there and saying that, I already knew that. But it was just crazy to hear from somebody that actually does go across the world and speak, and he can study the cultures and how people react to. Like
it's not a human thing. Like it's our culture.
It's our culture,
which is really interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. So I think it's really cool to have that knowledge. It's that way we can see things from the higher view. Yeah, and we can be able to not be so egotistical towards things, and even when we do, because we're surrounded by it, obviously, for obvious reasons, it's going to happen here and there. We can be able to know that, like, okay, well, that's not really the right thing, how I should be acting. This is just how I was raised. Like, there was like a saying I saw. It was like an example. I think it was just like a picture. I don't know. I saw it somewhere. So they put like a bunch of fleas in a jar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so fleas like jump around and they move around and stuff like that. Like they're springy, like they just move around. They put them in a jar, like a couple inch wide jar, small jar, and they put them in a jar for like, I don't know, 30 days, 30 minutes. I don't know how long it was, for a while. And they were just like jumping out, trying to get out of the jar. And after a while, they let them out of the jar. And then when they let them out of the jar, they were free, but they were still jumping in the formation of the jar. Like they weren't running away, they weren't escaping, because that's all they knew. Like their whole life was in the jar. So it's kind of like that.
Wow.
You know, like America was raised in just this, so all we know is jumping in that formation. And other countries, that's all they know. So they're jumping in that formation. So it's just what forms you, you know?
Wow. I literally have no other words but wow. I was like re-listening to our episode last week, and like when you speak, and I'm just like, it hits me. I'm like, wow, like, because that's my word right now. Is wow. No, but that is super. Yeah. I could relate to, like, I could see that, because when whatever you're raised with, that's what you know.
Yeah.
Like that mindset, that perspective, like that's what you know. And it's like, that's when we have to come in and renew and change our thinking and all that. Like we all have to renew our minds. Everybody. I don't care who your parents are. Like we all got to renew our minds.
Yeah. I mean, being raised by good parents, being raised by bad parents, doesn't matter. It has no effect to who you're going to be, really. Like, because you still have shortcomings because you were raised by a human. Like, literally, there's always going to be something that you can improve on, always going to be something that you can change. So and like you said, like talking about what forms you, you know, when you're raised by your parents, you're raised by your family members, you're raised by, you know, brother and sister, like you're around who you're around. So that's what's going to form you. You're going to be formed by a certain amount of limits, a certain amount of things that you're comfortable with, a certain amount of things that you're not so comfortable with. So like there's always things to break out of the formation of. And going into that, you know, I know we were talking about this like the other day, kind of just learning to be vulnerable, because that formation wasn't much in my life. I didn't see that so much in my life. So that's something that I have to train myself to get out of. And just being able to be vulnerable with you, because that's, you know, we're married, so I should be vulnerable with you.
Yeah. And then mine, so it's really cool because these are things that we really have been walking through this past like week or two, and it's just awesome that now we can come together like this and speak about this. And mine is just like with judgment and anger, and when I hear that I'm doing something wrong, it's not this positive feeling, it's this condemning, it's this, oh my gosh, like, you know, what am I doing wrong next? So it's like some people will always strive for perfection for different reasons, and I know like perfectionism and striving for perfection could be the fight, flight, or freeze mode. It's kind of like that. It's like a survival mechanism that you will have, like it's your just protection, perfectionism, which is really interesting because, you know, I was noticing like I'm always striving to like keep doing something and achieve something, or make sure I'm doing things a certain way. And it's like, because I'm afraid that I'm going to do it wrong, or I'm going to mess up this next thing. And it's where you have to look at the roots of these things. Like, where is this coming from? Like, why do I look at this kind of lens? Like, why do I, and I think the way you see God, the way you view God has a lot to do with the way, you know, you were raised. And would you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I'm learning to not see God as somebody that's, you know, judging me and marking off everything I'm doing wrong. And, he's up there like, oh, there she goes, messing up again. Like, oh no, like, what's wrong with you? Like, how many times do I have to tell you this? Like, why don't you ever learn? Like, things like that. That's how I would view God. So I have this constant, like, just fear and this, like, oh my gosh, like, I'm doing something wrong. And it's like, that's what I'm walking through right now. Like, I'm breaking free from that and viewing God as a loving father, because no human being here is going to be as loving and unconditional and perfect love like God. Like, we don't understand his love to the fullest. We don't. And we're human and we mess up and we can't love the way God can fully love. We're just limited in that way. We can try That's why we have the Bible to teach us, the fruits of the Spirit and stuff. But
so the way that we are formed through our human upcomings, we're raised by humans, we're raised by mom and dads, we're raised by, whoever raises us, whether it be grandparents, aunt, uncle, whoever. That's the formation that we're brought up in, like the fleas in the jar. So that's the formation that they're brought up in. But I would say that the perfect formation to grow up in would be to follow the Bible's formation. Like however it describes it, whatever is laid out inside of that is the mold that we should fit into. And that's what we should actually be striving to get to, getting from our formation to that formation. Because all of us have what we've been formed into, and now it's time for us to mold into whatever it is that the Bible says we need to be.
Yeah.
Because like you just said, like no one is going to understand like the love that God actually has until we're able to understand the Bible. Mm-hmm. So having that formation, having that mold to go into is where we should strive to be, because that's when we'll fully understand. That's when we'll fully, I don't know, be on the right formation, I guess. I don't know.
We'll just start seeing more of God.
Yeah.
That's just like, we'll start understanding more of his love. I don't think we'll fully comprehend, everything until we're in heaven.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So
I'm already stacking my questions up.
You already have a jar of questions.
Yeah, I do. But, the feeling like you're always doing something wrong, would you say that's a fight, flight, or freeze mode? Would you say that's a flight? Or you said that you feel like you always have to have everything perfect, right?
In a way, yeah.
So you said that was the flight, fight, or freeze mode.
It's like that.
It's like
that. It's like a survival mechanism. Like it's like I forget honestly how they worded it. So just forget I said that.
Well, do you think that falls in one of those categories?
I think whatever feeling that makes me feel it will go in one of those categories, like the perfectionism or feeling like I have to strive to make sure I'm doing everything right. I think that will that would probably go into the maybe fight mode. I'm not really sure.
I would think, I'm only asking just to hear your opinion, but in my opinion, I think, when you feel like you need to have everything perfect, and that's kind of like your resort, like something goes wrong, but you're like, okay, I have to have everything perfect, I think that's a flight.
That's literally like before you even said that, I'm like thinking in my mind, like as you're speaking, like I would think it's a flight too, because flight, you're just stuck. Mm-hmm. It's like a stuck feeling.
Or you're fleeing. Freeze would be stuck.
Oh.
So you're fleeing.
I'm all off, guys.
You're good. You're good.
See, this is what I'm saying.
You're good. I'm just saying, like, how I see it is it's a flight mode. But the good thing is that you're able to recognize that via help of me. I'm just kidding. You already know that. But you're able to recognize that and put it in a criteria of this is a flight. So maybe, I don't want to flight in this moment right now. I don't want to have that going on. In other situations, when people can view themselves as OCD with a negative annotation because they want to have everything perfect. Like, dude, you need to chill out. Like, just relax. Like, no. Everything has to be perfect. I'm OCD. Like, they're just saying that for the cover of flight mode. Like I'm actually in flight mode, but I'm just going to label OCD on it. I feel like that could be a lot of people. I feel like I can even fall under that sometimes too.
Like what?
Like needing everything to be perfect and then just say like, oh, it's just OCD. Like I'm OCD about things. Like I just have to have things the way I like them,
So what do you mean like that falls in the category as flight?
Like, well, because, you were saying that that you just feel like you have to have things perfect in a way, like when things go wrong, you just want to have things perfect. So when things go wrong, then you feel a sense of flight, like running away. And your sense of running away is having things to be perfect, like in your head. That's all I mean.
No, that makes sense. I just needed to connect to that. I just needed to connect that in my brain. You know what I'm saying? Well, yeah.
Yeah.
That's definitely another thing that I'm going through.
It's not a negative thing.
Yeah. It can feel like a negative thing. And just also, I think like codependency as well can be something I'm recognizing. And I think that could fall into the place of not caring about what people think and making sure that like God really is on the throne of your hearts and your minds. Like when I would think about you not being here, like if I were to think about, okay, let's say you get a job, you know, that requires you to go out of town sometimes, or even me, maybe I land on a good model, and that has actually been limiting me to want to apply to certain jobs that will, like a modeling job that's like in New York City or just somewhere, because I always have the back of my mind, well, I want you to be able to go with me, like I want you with me. And it's like I need to be okay being alone. Like I'm okay being alone during the day, but I can tell when I'm alone during the day. I mean, it's this constant, like, it's just this friction. All I'm saying is like I want to get to a place where I'm okay being alone. And no, even like if you're not going to be home that night for some reason, like I should be okay having a night to myself. And
well, I mean, I'd come home at night. But
yeah,
you're talking about like for the evening, I'd be gone.
yeah, let's say that you have, I don't know, what, like a church thing, like you did recently for the powder puff practice or something. And I was home and like, I'm over here like, okay, yeah. I mean, and then you kind of have to figure out the balance because we are married and stuff like that. But let's say that your camping trip. Like you went on your camping trip a few months ago and I was home alone for a few days. But I think because I knew I needed to, like I was going to be home, I was fine. I was. But at the same time, you miss your spouse. You miss, having you laying down and sleeping with me and stuff like that at night. Like we just miss each other. I think that's normal. But I really feel like the codependency is just like in that area. I think there's a lot of different areas in codependency. When I was like bringing it to, wise counsel and just trying to dissect this a little bit and figuring out, okay, I know there's a lot of different areas in codependency, and she just mentioned like be careful labeling it codependency because there's a lot that can go into that, and it's really just getting down to the root of things. Like why do you view something a certain way? Like we were just discussing earlier, like it's getting down to the root of things, and it's going back to the parts of how we were being formed and all that stuff. So it's like just figuring out, why do you lean into certain things? Why do you feel like people judge you so much? Why is that a thought? Why do you feel like abandonment or rejection? Like where is the root cause of these things? And if you don't get down to the root cause of those things, it can turn into codependency.
Yeah, I mean, I think as well, like you were just saying, it kind of always falls back to how we were formed. I mean, whether it be us getting raised by parents or in high school growing up, like things that happen in high school can also cause things that we're formed by and shape us and later for our future. I mean, that's a pretty detrimental time in our youth, growing up in high school. So you go through a lot and you absorb a lot in that time. So I think that can also fall under, how we're formed.
Yeah. I was listening to Judah Smith and his wife, Good Faith. And there's actually an episode called Codependency. And they were just talking about that. And they're saying, like, their counselor was saying, we're all actually, this was Dr. Caroline Leaf I was listening to. And she was saying, like, we are all codependent. Like, we have are codependent with each other.
Sure.
Yeah. We're human. Yeah. Like, we understand that we need that. Like, we need community. Yeah. We need relationships. We can't be isolated. That's codependent. It's good to be codependent. We have those tendencies. But codependency is when it can just not be, that's when, okay, that could be like a toxic relationship and stuff. And our relationship is not toxic. So I know, like, it's not in a toxic way. It could just be a mentality way that you have to, like, understand. Like, you have to put it in the right category.
So I wonder where the line is then.
That's where I took it to wise counsel, and that's what she was saying. Like, you have to be careful to label it codependency, because I know it can feel like that, like, oh, you always, like, clinginess, or you need that person, or maybe you're always having that person in your thought thinking like they're thinking about something of you, or maybe I have to always make sure that you're good for me to be good. Like, if you're stressed out, then I'm not going to be happy and I'm going to be stressed out. Like, it shouldn't be like that. It should be like, yes, I want you to be happy. I want you to not be stressed out, but I can't get like pulled down with you. I have to be the one where my heart is so aligned and it's healthy and whole on its own. Like I have to be whole and healthy on my own to be able to lift you up in your weak spots. And same thing for you in a healthy way and not a tear down way, like an uplifting way.
So do you think like the unhealthy codependency would fall under a line of unhealthy when it becomes a stressor? Or is like stressors of codependency normal? Because like you're saying, like we need community, we need each other. Like, I mean, even food, like we're kind of codependent on food because we need food. Like we have to eat food you know, to live. Water, we're codependent on water, like stuff like that. So like stuff like community, for example, we haven't seen people in a long time, or let's just say like me only. I haven't seen somebody for a very long time. I haven't hung out with any of my friends for a long time. Like I'm just by myself. And I feel a little like left out. I feel like almost like lonely and this stuff. Like, is that an unhealthy codependency at that point? Because I feel that way, or is that still a healthy codependency?
That's a very, very good question.
It's a good question. It's $1 million question, huh?
Yeah, because I feel like we need to be fully okay with ourselves. I think like, because I know that feeling. And I think that might fall into the feeling of like just a lack of worth, a lack of being fulfilled and like with you and God. Like it's like he can only fill the needs that nobody can fill. So if you're leaning on your spouse or your friends or your community to fill certain needs in you, that they can't fill because they're only human, that's where it's unhealthy, I think. I think we need to be fully okay and to be able to process those feelings with God. Hey, like, why am I feeling this right now? Like, I think he wants us to be fully okay with him before anybody else. That's what I think. Okay. Because he's our creator. He's the one that made us. He's our everything. He's our provider. Like, we got to be fully okay with him first. And so that's what I'm learning to do. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, when you're at work and I'm home alone and I'm learning to be vulnerable and open up to him and really have clear conversations with him. And I don't need to hide anything. I need to be fully naked, as you could say, like spiritually and mentally. Like, he knows everything already. Like, it feels so good to be able to just talk to him. Like, okay, why am I feeling this right now, God? Like, I'm literally feeling this feeling right now and I do not like it. And like, it happened when I was on social media. I was on social media for a minute today. And I wanted to just stray away from it because I was like, oh my gosh, like I was just feeling a little negative with it and just seeing certain thing on there that kind of bothered me. And I was just like, okay, why does this bother me? I don't like that feeling. Why does this bother me? So you're just kind of like heart check, self check, things like that.
So a healthy codependency, because like you said, what you were listening to, there is healthy codependency. We are dependent on some things. A healthy codependency, just to make the picture clear, a healthy codependency is not a stressor. An unhealthy codependency is a stressor. So anytime you feel like you need something and it's stressing you out and it's putting a strain on you, it's an unhealthy codependency. And that also, you know, you can decipher that and decide like, okay, well, I was brought up this way, or you can pick out your form, you know, like your formation and how you were formed, how you're raised, what you know, what you don't know. And you can also decide like, as you're doing that, like, this is an unhealthy codependency in my life. This is a healthy codependency in my life. And I feel like that would really help. You know, that's something I didn't know. Like, there is healthy codependencies.
That is really, that helps a lot. Thank you for breaking that down and explaining that, because that's true.
It's all about what you're formed by.
Yeah, and that's not like a negative thing. And I think that's actually something I wanted to bring up. Like, it's not a negative thing to look at how you're formed by. Like, I think we can take it, like we were talking about the different countries where this country or America kind of puts our walls up, and we're like, no, like, let's try to break that down. Like, let's break down those walls and be like, let's start looking at this in a healthier way, a better perspective, where it's okay to be corrected. It's okay to that's how we're going to grow and get stronger and change, is doing something different than what we know.
Yeah. I think we're supposed to be formed. We're formable for a reason. We're sponges for a reason. We absorb things for a reason. We are easy to learn things for a reason. We're meant to be formed. We're like Play-Doh, always being mended. So it's all about what you're formed by. You know, so I think that's really like the big picture we're getting here from the whole conversation. Mm-hmm. But we want to leave you guys with that. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. It is a wrap for the episode. It is time. But we love you guys. Thank you so much for listening. If you made it to the end of this episode, there is a special place for you in heaven. And always remember, it is about what you are formed by. So we'll see you guys next week. See things from a higher view. Until then, peace out.